We're going to do this open snowdrop now, but I'm just going to switch it up a little bit. I know I said you needed to keep out the pale blue and the pale green, but I'm going to change the colour slightly because I think it's nice to give you a different option. So we're going to deal with this. So I've got numbers 131 and 27 out of the snowdrop set. And I've still got my greens that I was using before, but I've put away 174 and 143, all right? So let's do the leaves again first. Let's go in with our 173 and get that colour laid down. So exactly as we did before, just putting that light colour down and then blending them through. So I'm going to go quite quiet and just do this because you will have watched me do the first one. And I've got a little fibre right on the end of my brush nib, so I'm just going to try and get rid of that. There we go, it's better. It's the smallest thing, but it really annoys me. I have to get rid of it, but don't cut it. Please don't use your scissors or your tweezers. Because it's just where that little bit of rubber's just flexed, that's all. And you will get it. I used to get it with my Copic markers. Just happens because you're using your pens a lot over time. You just get like a little roll of rubber at the top. Right, so I'm going to go to 220 and just think about where my mid colour is going to go. So there's not going to be too much on this one because this is at the front. So I'm going to bring it down from the top and up from the bottom. I'll leave that quite light in the middle. And then this one is going to be darker because it's going behind there. It's going to be darker here because it's going behind that leaf and it's underneath that petal. And then filling that in. Just following that through to the top. And then I'm just going to use two colours, I think. I don't think we need to add any other colours into there. I think we're fine just with those two. So it's, again, it's giving you a different option. And these leaves are narrower than the ones we did before. So I'm quite happy to just use those two. But I am going to put a little bit of dark at the bottom, or the mid colour, the darkest of the two colours, should I say, at the bottom there, just to pull that up. I missed a bit there, so I'm going to go back in and get that bit. It has to be right, it'll annoy me if it's not. So back to 173. Leaf, Melanie, not the stem. Don't worry about that, okay? If you do the wrong bit, it doesn't matter because when you put a colour over the top, it moves colour underneath. And then the next leaf is here. So we're going to bring that down. And then going back up there, laying that soft colour down. We'll deal with those two, so 220. Pulling up from there. And again, you can see I'm doing that very gentle flick. But where we did the flick like we did on the background skies, where they were long, I'm keeping these quite short, but I'm also doing them at different lengths, just so that it doesn't become too uniform, because nature isn't like that. And then in here, going up like that, down there, and then coming down from the stem there. Don't worry if you get a little bit of colour on that stem because we're going to go over it anyway. And then up from here, so make sure that you go, put your depth in there and then flick up like that. And following that line through round there, and just bringing that through to the side of that leaf just a bit. Okay, and then back to 173, and if you remember from lesson 1 when we were doing the stalks of the mushrooms, I kind of started in the middle and flicked down and then flicked up, and just very light backwards and forwards. So depending on which technique you prefer, I like this because it's really soft, but you have to get used to the technique of doing, so you're doing this backwards and forwards, but as light as you possibly can. If you find that difficult, then just go in and just use your circle movements to just move that colour and then practice it. The lightest of touch just makes that really delicate. And then we're going to do, we'll do this leaf as well. We might as well finish it off while we're here, eh? Let's lay this colour down. And then 220, coming up from the bottom, just very, very delicate here. And then where you can see the leaf is much finer at the top, use that opportunity to bring that dark down from there. And again, just bringing it down that side. And then 173. Okay, soften it there. Right, so let's put the stems in now. So I think we'll use, oh, let's have a think about it. Let's do 220 and 47, I think. So I'm going to stick with that yellower base and then 47. So I always just try them again. So you can see that's quite green and that's quite yellow, but they both have a yellower base. They don't have a blue base, so we can get away with that. So I'm going to start by putting in the 220 this time. And very gently colouring that stem in. And then do this one at the same time because it's just a small area. And then where I went, put that really pale colour down initially, by mistake, I can just eliminate that now with that colour. And then going in with 47. And again, very light touch, just coming down from where that stem opens up into that flower. And the smallest amount, just literally. I'm getting you ready with this one for that bit. And you might really curse me there because it is really fine, but it's a challenge and it's worth doing it because it's a really good test of how light your touch has become. And if it's just too small, whether it's for your eyesight or for your dexterity, if you scan it in, you can then make it bigger and then print it off. Just a thought. Right, so now I'm just going to lay down these two pinks so you can see that they're quite pale, and one is quite pink, it's a bit sugary, sugary pink. That sounds strange because sugar's white, but you know what I mean. It's like a little bit candy floss pink. And then you've got a peachy colour, and we're going to use both. So we're going to go in with the pink first and then soften it through with the peach. And this time I'm not going to use my blender. I'm just going to go straight in with this because the peach is lighter than the pink. If I lay the pink down first, the peach will soften it. So we're going to go in and we're just going to put the smallest amount. Again, we're not colouring the whole petal. We are literally just working at the base of those petals. So it's a hint of a tint of a colour. Really is very, very gentle. Okay, and then you've got stamens in here as well. So make sure you go in between those stamens and then bring a little bit of colour above them, and then round here and a little bit further up, and then finally a little bit on this petal there. Very, very pretty, very pretty. And then the peach, I'm just going to not go completely where the pink has been, but just add a little bit to that base, and that will just soften that colour through. Okay, and just add a little bit more interest to those petals because you've got two colours going on then. And it could be where the sunlight hits, goes, looks, you know, you see the sunlight through the petals. It just casts another colour through there. That's very pretty. But I'm just going to go in and just take some of that peach a little bit higher. And sometimes when you see a petal that's almost translucent, you can almost see like the veins in it. So by going up with that peach, we can just add a little nod to those veins being there. Okay, happy with that. So I'm going to do the other flower while that dries, and then we'll come back in and do the stamens in the middle. So again, in with the pink, which is 131. Just making sure that I'm going right to the bottom. And then here, those little pollen heads are. And then moving my work round so that I'm in control of that brush nib. It's comfortable to colour. And then moving it back round, just adding a small amount here. And then a little bit coming down here. So when I'm doing this one, I'm almost colouring in like a fan shape. So I'll start there, and then from the same point, I will flick out from the middle because that's kind of the shape of the petal. I do think that in depth about it. And then coming up with that peach. Again, just bringing one or two of those little flicks a little bit higher up. Remember, it's going to be even lighter when it dries. So we can get away with it because they are both very, very pale colours, but no blender this time, so an alternative option for you. And you could actually make these into crocus as well. That would be rather lovely, just changing the colours up a bit and adding a bit more depth. But just learning to colour very, very, very delicately is lovely. And if you feel that that's a little bit too strong a colour, first of all let it evaporate, and then you can go back in with your blender and your brush nib, and you can very, very light. You can just hear it, actually. Just so you know that that nib is touching that paper. So if I do it without touching, nothing. And then there's that slight noise. But you have to be in a very quiet room. So I'm just softening those ends there, just where that colour comes out. And then across. Like that. Right. Little pollen bits in the middle. Now they're green. So I'm going to go back in with my, 173 I think. We'll go in a bit lighter to start with. We can always add it. Just coming down there, and it's nice because the green's coming in from here into there then. And I looked at them and I did a search on them and they are green. And then I'm going to go in with 220 and just very gently dot a little bit of that darker colour. You might look at that and go, I am not blending in that small space, fine. But I have to because my brain won't let me not. Just fill it in, and it does make a difference, to be fair. If you're a bit scared of doing it with the green, do it with a warm grey, because you'll get that depth, but it won't be as scary as going in with a green. And also, if you think you've put the green down and it's a little bit too bright, you can knock it back with a warm grey as well. And then a little bit of that green just at the base there and underneath that little pollen head there. And then just dab that green in. Like that. Okay, so that's very delicate, very, very pretty. Now we're going to go on to this, and this is a labour of love. I'm not going to lie, because you've got to get right in with a brown colour, and then you've got to go into those tiny, tiny little areas. And we're going to use the 2-7 that we've used, and I think we will go in with the 137. I think that's why I chose that other colour. Oh no, that's a bit bright. Let's have a look what 219 is like. I think that's even brighter. So we might stick with the pink and the 27. Or let's have a look what the 238 was like. That's a better colour. Let's do 238 from your rose. And your 27, which is your peachy colour. All right, and then we're going to need a brown, so I think I did 102 from your, yeah, I did 102 from your Snowdrops, and 93. And if you're sitting there thinking, why is she not thinking, well, that 219 isn't going to work with the Snowdrops, that's because we're going to use them somewhere else. So as I explained in an earlier class, we put the pens in sets of 12. So there's a whole row. So some of them you will use for the project, but some of them you'll use in a later project or an earlier project. But it was just the way we wanted to lay them out for the class. So if you're thinking, well, why is she not using all the colours? That'll be why. Right, here we go. So I'm going to turn this round, and I'm going to start with my palest brown, which is 102. Maybe. Let me just check. Yeah, it's 102. Now, you have to work really slowly with this, and you have to concentrate. So what I'm going to do is take my nib, and I'm going to go in, I'm going to do all the branch. So I'm going to put all the brown bits in. So I'm going to go really quiet, because I don't need to teach you anything. You just need to look where all those branch bits are. And I'm going to go in, and this is now a test as to how delicate you've become with that nib. And it's something that you're going to need to know, you're going to need to master because not all stamps are always going to be big open spaces. And it's worth it, but you just kind of need to go into your zone with this. Right, I think I've done that bit. Tell you, this one. Right, so let's have a look at number 27 and 238. So, yeah, right, what I'm going to do is get you to, if we look, I'm just having a look at what I've done on that one, is just go in and put a little bit of 238 at the bottom of each of those petals, okay? So literally a dot. And this isn't going to be part of your assessment, so don't worry about it. This is just a test for you to make sure that you're learning your delicate touch. Okay, so just pop in that colour in the middle. Right, just a bit of branch there, so I'm going to go back in while I can see it. There we go. Okay, oh, one there, bear with. Right, then we're going to do 27, and I'm just going to fill in the rest of each one of those petals. Breathe. Right, I'm going to show you what we've done. So you've got your snowflakes here, but with a pinker hue to them, and then this really ridiculously tiny cherry blossom branch. But you never know, you might never ever colour that in again, but it's teaching you to be very gentle and understand that the lightest touch you can possibly imagine with these pens will lay down colour. So it's worth doing it. You might, like I say, you might never want to ever see that again, but it's worth doing it, all right? So that is the end of month 7. Wow, it's going so fast. We're almost halfway through. I will see you for month 8 when we're going to do autumn berries, which is lovely, really lovely. So we're going into those really rich russet colours, those golden colours. So go away and practice. Don't forget to share on InkLily Campus on Facebook, and I will see you in a month's time.